oops, one of my lights went out, or actually two of them, but anyway, let's go on. It's a sunny day, I don't need those extra lights. We stop this one. Next feature I want to go with you into is services. If you wonder what services are, they didn't exist prior to JAX-RS 3.1. In JAX-RS 3.0, you already knew features. You could combine, for example, filters and interceptors into features. And if you wanted to use a feature, you had to register it either automatically by using the provider annotation or explicitly, for example, here in the get classes method. But there is often the case that the features you are adding are not specific to your application in any way. So actually, they are not application features, they're something else. And looking at Jersey, for example, the modules of Jersey, they are also something else, but they are implemented as features. So what Services is providing to you is a solution to load such modules into any runtime. So certainly you couldn't go right from the start and pick any Jersey module and put it into CXF, for example. That won't work. But for the future, we expect that more such modules will exist where features are actually extensions of the JAX-RS runtime, and you can put it into your setup easily. And I want to develop such a feature with you and packages as a service, so you will understand what actually this all is about. So here we go. If we want to write our own service, or what I call it JAX-RS extension, we should start with an idea what what it will be doing for us. What about rendering? We could, for example, change the rendering. We currently simply send a string and we want to have it rendered somehow. As you know, there's default rendering for XML or default rendering for JSON, but we won't go in that direction. Let's render it as an HTML page. Yeah, we could, for example, change the rendering that we have the text hello world, and actually it's getting provided like a nice HTML page instead. And a renderer is nothing else than a message body writer. So we need to write a message body writer that does the rendering for us. To not make you wait endless, I have prepared source code. So here it is, and I will walk you through it. So what we did is that we wrote a feature. A feature always has a configure method, and the configure method registers the filters provided by the feature, and it returns true, and it is marked as produces text XML to make clear that this is the MIME type that shall get reported to the browser when we're rendering using this feature. If you wonder why I simply implemented the filter in the same class that actually is working, this was more or less laziness. Let's do it in a more safe way that actually should work everywhere and make the thing more clear. We need to say register, and the component is our filter. So we need to change this. This is an inner class. Let's make it static. we call it filter implements message body writer. So it's more like you would expect it. Let's pretty print it. So this is what you would have expected. That's always the better way to do it this way, because it's clear what it does now, and we would even go with that line here, so the filter is easier to read now. Okay, so sorry, I certainly need the class. Okay, so when this feature is added to our application, it will get configured. We will call register for our filter class. Then we say, okay, everything is fine, boot the application. And here we implement our filter. When JAX-RS is asking whether we can render something specific, for example, can you render the type apple into the type whatever, we always return true. This certainly is not a good idea. We certainly should check the actual type we want to render and the actual media type that we shall render into. But just for now, we will add that later. Let's stay with true always. And the actual rendering happens here. We provide a print stream which wraps the actual stream into the response entity, and into that one we do printf for nice formatting. Here you see we can use the multi-line strings, which is really a great invention in modern Java, because we can just put the formatted HTML as we want to return it to the client in a very readable form, and we can still use our placeholders here because we're still in a printf. So if you do not understand the HTML here, that's pretty easy. First we have a heading. The heading consists of the string that we want to render actually, which currently is our greeting. Then we provide a form, and in that form we want to be able to edit the greeting. That's a really cool thing, and you will see what happens if we do that later. But first, let's go on with the rendering. We say objects to string to the passed in value. Why this? Because that could be null. There is no guarantee that this isn't null, and we don't want it to fail in that case. So that's why we say objects to string. And then we do flush. Why do we do a flush here? Because this flush works on this print stream, and we actually want that this content is flushed into the original stream here. If we wouldn't do that, it could happen that the print stream buffers some parts of that string, doesn't forward it into the entity stream. Now we could say that, well, doesn't JAX-RS flush on its own? Yes, it does, but it flushes this one and not this one, so it would be missing. Yeah, so far so good. So let's go back here, and if we start now, there won't be any change, because we have not yet told the application to actually load our service. It's not a service right now, it's still something else. It's still a feature. So you would expect that we go with this one, HTML.class. You would expect us to do this, which is what you would have done prior to JAX-RS 3.1.